Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel where we review anything and everything. And today we are jumping into this tabletop RPG set right here. Now, for those who have been watching the channel for a long time, two things. One, if you would know that we've seen this before on the channel, but it looked differently, so some updates were made to it. And secondly, if you guys are into supporting me and supporting the channel, you could do that by purchasing any of these. If you guys are into RPG type of games, I'm gonna have a link in the description down below for you guys to purchase on Amazon. But this would actually help the channel because these are items that I have created. Now, what you have in front of you here are 4 different types of books. Now they come in paperback, soft cover paperback for this one, which is the first book, the second book. The third book has a soft paperback as well, but this is the hardcover book, and this right here is the deluxe edition is simply these two put together because these don't have enough pages to be hardcover. Well, this one does, this one doesn't, as far as Amazon standard. So that's why I put them in this form. So if you wanted both of these in hardcover, you would just get the deluxe version. Or if you just wanted them in the soft paperback, you would just get them as follows. And this one has a paperback as well. So anyway, jumping into this now, I reviewed a bit of it on the channel in the past, but now obviously the covers have been updated along with things kind of being a little bit more in place and a better stance as far as certain things that went over and certain things have changed. But overall, I really love everything that not only has been added to it, but in addition, for those who haven't seen this on the channel before, because when I did review them on the channel, it was a long time ago when we first started the channel. For those who are into tabletop RPGs, to me, and this is not to say this because I created it, but a little bit so, but I think this is one of the best tabletop RPG games that you could ever get into, and I'm going to explain to you why. And this is part of the basis on why it was created in the first place. So this is somewhat of a review, but it's also just kind of giving you guys some information. So it was created because there are a lot of people who would like to experience things like tabletop RPGs. And for those who don't know what that is, tabletop RPGs are best known as the most famous of that category, which is things like Dungeons and Dragons. But you then later on had other brands as well. But for those who know what an RPG is, wouldn't need any further examples. For those who don't know, Dungeons and Dragons is probably the only one you ever heard of. But essentially what it is they call it theater of the mind. And it's simply you taking dice. It has a mechanic system that allows you guys to operate almost like a combat system, and it's almost like the equivalent of a computer system. So you guys are able to govern the rules of you guys simply kind of telling out a story. And I'm not going to go too heavy into what RPG is right now, but if you guys list down below in the comments that you guys want a full breakdown, I will make a separate video for that. But anyway, we're just going to get into the product. So like I said, the purpose of why this was created was because a lot of people find a lot of that too heavy to get into, and it's hard for them to kind of really understand it. You need someone to teach it to you. And this system here was made so that you don't have to have ever played an RPG to know how to learn it. So when you take a look at the first book, and the first book has its base and it has a hero expansion built into it. And essentially, excuse me, it starts off just very light, and what it introduces is a base. Let me see if I have a character example on here really quickly, because I know that I have that. And it starts with just a base set of stats. So here you go right here. Give you an idea of what a base character would look like. And it's not much going on. It's just the person's stats, basic stats, and weapons. If obviously within the game, you end up giving your characters weapons. But other than that, all of the decisions that you make and everything that you do within the game is it's acted out, is role played out. You don't, and like I said, I'm explaining this from a standpoint if someone knows what RPGs is. Later on, I'll make a video breaking all that down. But you don't have to roll dice to make decisions on, I want to go into a room and I want to be quiet, or, I'm going to sneak into this area, or I want to climb something. You just do it, because these are things that for newcomers, and like I said, some people who are really heavy and advanced, they like all those stats for every little thing you do. Maybe this may not be for them, but for a lot of people, when you're introducing them into a game, they're brand new and about RPGs, but they don't want to try to learn a bunch of different rules that tell them they got to roll a dice to sneak into a room. They got to roll a dice to, climb a wall. You may not have the skill to climb a wall, so now you got to roll a dice to climb a wall. It takes them out of the experience. One, it becomes too much to learn. It becomes too heavy. And then two, it takes them out of the experience of being able to say, I just want to role play and enjoy the story. Similar to you watching a movie. I don't want to watch, say, John Wick figure out how he's going to climb a wall for the next 10 minutes because he didn't get his rolls correct, his checks correct, and he couldn't climb the wall. You just want to see him climb the wall and go on to the next thing he's about to do, which is probably attack somebody or do whatever he's about to do. And you don't want to sit there and worry about all those little details. And most people who are coming into tabletop RPGs also don't want to deal with all that worrying about that kind of stuff in the flow of the story. So this eliminates that. It just really focuses on combat for what the system's for. And when it comes to you having to make decisions on things, you pretty much can just roll it out as a 50-50 percentile dice roll. And if the game master wants to allow it to just be where it's just simply a 50-50, either you 50% you make it, 50% you don't, they can do that. But it's very flexible with things. But also it introduces a hero expansion in it, in which if you want to play a hero-based game, you can. Now, it doesn't use leveling up in the game as its core, but once you dive into the hero expansion part of the book, which you see here, it starts with the basics. And then once you get to that portion of it, then you introduce things like powers and superhero powers. And the way it works is it goes off a point system. So your game master will give you a set amount of points that you guys would have. And he may make certain caps in terms of how powerful you could be, in terms of, not to make it too heavy right now without diving into it. But he might say, I don't want nobody having a strength or class level that surpasses maybe something like 50 tons. So that way you can build your character up in that category, but you can't go beyond that. And there's like class levels towards certain stats. So if he says something like, your game master says, I don't want no one having a stat that goes past a class 5, that would stay true to your strength, your durability, your energy, your mental capabilities as you build up your superhero. None of your stats go past a class 5 if they want to put a hard limit for the game to keep it at a certain level. But beyond that, there is no leveling system. Now, when you do play the hero expansion, what happens is, like I said, you can be allotted more points as you go through, and if the game master chooses to do so, and it gives a sense of a leveling system in that regards. But like I said, it's a lot more just kind of free flowing and not based on, XP or anything like that. It's just at the end of you playing a session, your game master might choose to say, I want to award you, each of you guys, 10 more points to build towards your hero-based character. And you would, assign those points to what you want to assign it to. And then you could see here that, there is, points. It will tell you, 1 point per rank for this and whatnot and different things, and have a whole assortment of powers and whatnot. This game was developed completely from the ground up. Just know that I actually created it, or at least the remnants, the beginning phases of this, since I want to say it was like about maybe 2001. So so this was all straight from, just me creating it. But the thing about it is, though you'll see things about it that may relate to some games you've played before, just know that that was never part of where any of it came from, because the basis for this was really created in like 2001. So here in the expansion 2 book is really about the similar to the Dungeon Master's book. In this case, it'd be like the Game Master's book. It's just titled Expansion 2. But essentially what it is, it just kind of shows you about building a world, NPCs, how to create characters, different items and, like weapons and stuff like that you guys could use in terms of your weapon system. Giving names to different things, like guns inside here are given fake names that we just created. You could use real ones if you want, but it kind of gives kind of a breakdown on them and like a little bit of in-world context in terms of how it is, in terms of how easy it is to get on the black market or things of that sort. And then it goes into a list of breaking down hero archetypes, and you don't have to necessarily follow them, but it's just to help you guys get an idea for character building. So that way, if you're a little stumped on how you want to build your character, it kind of gives you a reference. And there's a lot of different archetypes in here. I'll just run through them really quickly. So we have the Paragon. We have 3 different types of the Paragon. We have the Cape Paragon, the non-Cape Paragon. So the Cape Paragon is like your Superman. Your non-Cape Paragon is almost like Mr. Incredible. And then your Soldier Paragon is like Captain America, because I still think of him as a Paragon type, but I called it Soldier Paragon. And then you have your Crime Fighter type / Vigilante. You have your Mass Crime Fighter type. You have your Gun-Toting Crime Fighter type, and then you have your Archer Crime Fighting type. Obviously, these are very well-known archetypes. And you have the Warrior God, the Warrior archetype, which breaks down into Warrior God and Warrior Guardian. The only difference is the Guardian is a little bit weaker than the God type, generally speaking. But the difference also in their nature of how they would be built is one is probably more guarding a source, while a Warrior God is something probably more akin to like a Thor character, who is a God level of an element, or whatever it is, an element or some sort of power source. You have your Brick as an archetype. You have the Altered Form, which is somebody who will transform. And then you have the Powerhouse type. So the Powerhouse type would be just someone who's always like in that changed, like in that kind of monstrous big form or whatever they are, where the altered form might be something like a Colossus type or something like that transforms. And then you have your Blaster, which subcategories into Glass Cannon or Energy Manipulator. You have your Armored Suit, which has a subcategory of Universal or Agile Armor, or Powerhouse Armor. So essentially Universal is something almost like an Iron Man type. The Agile Armor is something almost like you wearing an armor that makes you somewhat more like a Dex monkey, as they would call it. And Powerhouse just simply makes you almost like something kind of like a Hulkbuster-ish. So, and then we have Magic Users, which subcategory you have Sorcerer is like a kind of general blanket term, but then we also have there's your generic sorcerer, and then you have your sorcerer / necromancer, focusing more on raising the dead and things of that sort and creating zombies. And then you have your occult detective as far as magic user as well, if you want to do that. And then you also have sage. So that one has, and the idea of the sage was just more of like this overly powerful cosmic type of like magic being user. More old, more wise. And in the robotic archetype category, you have robot and you have cyborg, and it breaks down the difference between the two. And then we have shifter, and that falls into the category of, well, subcategories of that is shapeshifter, obviously changing the way you look. Size shifter, which is altering your size. And it gives you a breakdown of examples for a quick reference chart of your size that you would change. You obviously could combine the two. And then the last subcategory of shifter is stretcher, because you're still shifting your body. So that kind of goes into that same, obviously it is self-explanatory, you're the stretchy type. And then we have speedster, which is self-explanatory, we don't have multiple breakdowns of that. And the mentalist is the last category. And that one, that archetype breaks down into 4 different subtypes. You have the telepathic power mind and a telepathic battle mind. So both of those are using non-physical mind, like telepathic type of attacks similar to like a Charles Xavier, except the difference is the power mind is just more so focusing on a powerful offensive attack without being physically great in terms of combat. So you would think more like Charles Xavier, maybe not obviously being handicapped, but just the way Professor X is. And then the battle mind is something more like Psylocke, where you have a mental, maybe like a physical attack. Not a physical attack, a mental mind attack, but you use it in close combat. So your character is a little bit more developed physically, maybe not superhuman, but maybe peak human. And then the same for the power mind and telekinetic power mind and the telekinetic battle mind. Same difference, but in this case, one is using telekinetic abilities in the way of like Jean Grey moving things with her mind, is that, and the other one, telekinetic battle mind, is more like force punches and things of that sort, and you're kind of flipping around using like you're very trained in close combat while having the ability to like have these kind of telekinetic punches. So, and those are the archetypes there. A little bit of house rules come into play, and this is, like I said, mainly the book for your game master. And then the expansion 3 is, like I said, the deluxe is really just a combination of these. But expansion 3 is essentially your is like your monster manual. So it's a complete superhero world that was developed, and it has some aspects of it that could be further expanded on, but essentially you have a bunch of I'm not even going to go into it in detail right now or even go run through it, but you have a fully detailed world where you have one speaks on how you can go about creating your world, not so much exactly like this one, but more so in the sense like these are the elements that could be suggested to put into yours. Then it goes into these are the elements we put into ours, and then it goes into the layout of what our little playground looks like. And it has things like cosmic creators, it has different very known cities, it has different teams, certain themed locations, things of that sort. And a lot of it has a lot of details in terms of the characters and their little kind of background, their kind of little summary of their background a little bit. But what's interesting is as you read through the different characters, you start seeing that some of them, their stories in their history connect with other characters, but not outright. It's not going to say it that way, but might hint at it. And it's for you to kind of realize, oh, wow, like this is kind of speaking of this other person. And so, so it's very interesting, but it gives you a basis for you to kind of play in if you want to play in a superhero world and you want to be able to say, okay, well, I need characters to draw from. I need enemies to draw from. I need heroes to ally with. I'm a bad guy and I need heroes that I'm going to have to fight. It gives you that so you can just kind of, play in that playground. And the one thing about it, in addition to that, is it doesn't go on a basis of fitting your level. But as I said before, the game master will be able to utilize characters that are of a certain level. But since it's a huge expanded world, essentially what you have is you're going to have characters who are far more powerful than what you are. What the details inside the expansion 2 is things like, even though, like I said, there's no levels in the game, there is a sense of scale. And, so there is a part that speaks on here about when you're forming your game as the game master, things like street level heroes and, a little bit higher than that, like middle level type of heroes. I forget the term that I use inside there, but then it goes up to like superhuman, the cosmic level. And so there are certain characters inside this book where you would obviously fit a street level game and some that don't. And maybe they might be into the background somewhere, but obviously you know to stay away from them if you came across them or whatever the case is, because certain characters are just going to be out of your league. But that's what makes it nice, is it makes it really cool, is that it's just a world that's just has all of that in it. So anyway, you guys, like I said, if you're into RPGs, check these out. I'm going to have the link down below for you guys to purchase on Amazon. It's really fun. It's really nice. It's easy. If you guys are into RPGs, you're going to be able to get other people into them so easy. And so if you get it, it's a fun read. But like I said, getting your friends into it will be so easy. And who knows, maybe from this will be stepping stones for other RPGs you may want to get them into that are a little more complicated. Or this has free reign for you to expand it and add what you want. The game is not so strict in a way where it's like you can't change or touch anything. No, the game is made for you to add your touches into it. You add your own rules, expand onto it, do whatever you want to do. You can do all of that. If you want to start adding in things like saves and checks, you can do that and create your own add-on system for that. Whatever you want to do, it's for you to do, but it gives a solid base for you guys to kind of just run and gun and play without having to have a hassle, but mainly so you can introduce your friends who've never played this stuff before and get them into it. So check it out, you guys. Or like I said before, if it's just to support the channel, then go ahead. You know, there'll never be a time where I tell anybody, you know, oh, when it comes to these type of things like super chats and this and that, you can donate. And some people say, you know, whatever the case is or whatever, I'll never do anything like that. But the idea of a product that you guys can have in hand and you guys can support the channel by actually using it and having fun with it and playing with your friends is all the welcome. So you guys check it out. And as always, like, share, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you guys in the next video.